It's also the case that the private sector, market forces that Nate referred to, and state and local policies and regional policies in the U.S. and the electricity market have been driving changes in our emissions behavior. So there has been a decoupling of economic growth and emissions growth in recent years in the U.S. And not a lot of that had to do with federal policy. A lot of it had to do with other drivers. And so the president's announcement, particularly the way that he made it, I think has led a lot of people to become saints around the country, to declare their sainthood and to declare themselves in opposition to the sinner in the White House. And it's a very exciting development. So as Lisa mentioned, and there are a number of threads to it. I think everything is still sort of sorting itself out. Whether it will converge on a single platform or not, I don't know, but I hope so. Because there's no reason that we can't have something like a Paris Agreement amongst the United States. I don't think we can do without the federal government, but we can get by without them for a while, and I think that's the way to think about it. So for instance, as you mentioned, there was a hashtag, really not much more than that, called We Are Still In, that was sort of fully announced yesterday with 9 states, and this grew out of an effort spearheaded by Mayor Bloomberg, former Mayor Bloomberg of New York, who was a special envoy of the UN in this area. And so he mobilized what he called, at that time, America's Pledge, which is now We Are Still In which 9 states, over 200 cities, over 900 businesses, and over 180 universities have said, we still support Paris. Now, exactly what that means remains to be determined, but nonetheless, it's a statement of commitment. There was also something called the U.S. Climate Alliance, which was announced by Governor Brown, Governor Cuomo, and Governor Inslee of Washington. That includes 12 states and Puerto Rico now. They were just expanded yesterday. So I think we'll see more states coming into this as we move forward. What it exactly means for emissions, I think that remains to be seen. A lot of it is happening because it makes sense economically. A lot of it is happening because the markets are being designed in such a way that it does make sense. So our energy markets are not free markets the way you might imagine many other markets, but they're structured by government. It's almost inevitable, and we see this all over the world. But across the states, there are different models. So I think it's an exciting development. There's a lot of hard work to be done to measure commitments, to monitor them. And there are some mechanisms in the Paris Agreement which we can talk about that facilitate that on an international basis. But it might be possible for the U.S., states, cities, and private companies to say to the world in a united way, hey, we are still in Paris, even without the United States government playing the role that it used to play. I did a very crude calculation just of states that have made commitments for 2050, that is emissions reductions commitments, and then extrapolating patterns from other states, and I came up with 43% by 2050. So it's not 80%. I think if we added cities that have made commitments, we might get over 50%. So even without the 43% emissions reductions from 2005 in 2050. So if we assume that all the states that have made 2050 commitments achieve them, and we extrapolate emissions patterns from the last few years out to 2050, and obviously I wouldn't want to put this through peer review, so this is for think tank consumption. But I would invite my colleagues to improve these calculations. There's a lot of work to be done on them. But just back of the envelope stuff. We can say to the world, hey, we're halfway to our commitment without even trying. And now maybe this saints will get together and try harder.